Thanks, Donna. We're going to start on 2 blocks. Cross-legged Sukhasana. You probably know the rule already, but the rule of Sukhasana is if you're on 2 blocks, you have a blanket. That's a rule, so that's nice and easy. Sometimes rules are quite easy to remember. And the reason for the blanket is it's a break. That is to say, it allows the legs to travel, but not ad infinitum. When they travel forwards, it pulls the pelvis forwards. And that's good because it pulls the lower back in. But it's not good if it keeps going in and in and in and in. So we want it just to have a little break, a little point where it stops. So we're in Sukhasana, made of 3 particles, Sukha-asana. Su meaning good, or easy, or relaxed, or well done. And ka meaning space. So it's a good space. It's a well-made space. So how do we make this space, sitting cross-legged, into a good space? You make it into a good space by not bringing anything into it. You don't ruin the space. If you bring too many things into a space, it stops being a space and becomes cluttered. So we keep it empty, the space. What might we bring into it? Habit, assumption, presumption, various forms of reaching out, grasping, wanting, trying, various forms of self. So we can say with some confidence that yoga is any speech, action, or thought, mantra, asana, meditation, dhyana, any speech, action, or thought that is not driven by habit, it's non-habituated. So it's an expression of emptiness. So hopefully this is giving us all a chance to arrive here in Sukhasana, to settle. And there's a lovely, I know you can feel it, corresponding expansion that goes with settling. So we call it settling expansion, settling expanding. We're going to bring our hands to the heart center for the Atmanjali Mudra. And we're going to breathe through the nose if we can. Jaw soft, soft eyes, soft throat, soft brain, soft tongue. A relaxed bum. Interlace your fingers, stretch your arms down. Raise up about 3/4 of the way up. We'll need to be mindful not to tense up, which is psychophysical. If the mind tenses, the body tenses. If the body tenses, the mind tenses. They're all one thing. This is one of the most foundational meanings of the word yoga. It's the recognition that everything is everything. It's all one thing. So as we're moving left or right, forwards or backwards, there's a purpose to our movements. And the purpose is tuning in to this interdependence where we can feel as a direct experience, we're responding as a direct experience, that the whole of our body is related to the whole of our body. Any part of it is related to any part of it. And the breath is related to the mind, and the mind is related completely to the body. It's not even related, they're the same thing. Take a big wide circle if you're ready to release, and take a hasta mudra, the Jnana mudra, so it's index finger and thumb tip touching, palms facing up. And nasal breathing because it humidifies the air and it filters the air and it warms the air and it slows the air. And no doubt it does other things besides, but those things are enough. So perhaps you can feel as you're breathing in and out through your nose, there is a sense in which the air is slowed down. There's a series of sort of obstacles called the sinuses. It's not a straight path, which acts to slow the breath down. And because of the mucus linings of the sinuses, it also hydrates the breath as it goes past those mucus linings. And because of the little hairs in the nose, it filters as well. And because there's a lot of blood vessels in the nasal area, it warms. Okay, we're going to release the interlace of our fingers. And for the other cross of the legs, we're going to lay down for a special treat. So remember which leg you got crossed in front of which. Take the 2 blocks you're sitting on. You can do this without blocks as well, but I recommend 2 blocks. For some reason, I've got 2 different colored blocks, but I don't mind. Mix and match, why not? The other leg, the one you had in front now, is in front. The buttocks are scooted under towards the heels, and we lay ourselves down nice and comfortably. I hope. I highly recommend arms over their head, but it's oftentimes a useful thing to move the arms individually and manifold times. So each time you lift an arm, you shift the shoulder blade, bottom inner edge of the shoulder blade, out away from the spine. And so the bottom inner edge of the shoulder blades are pulled out and up. Obviously, that tilts the whole shoulder blade so that the aperture in the shoulder blade, where the arm bone sits, the glenoid fossa, is tilted upwards more, making it less tense, more easy to bring the arms over the head. Anyway, now we're laying. Let's take deep breaths with a focus on surrender, sharanagati, with a focus on giving. And as we often say, calmness conditions connection. So it's a really useful little Vajrasati yoga phrase, calmness conditions connection. Because as we become increasingly calm, and of course this follows what the Yoga Sutras tell us, anyway, as we become increasingly calm, it's as if we sort of uncurl like a fern, you know, like ferns uncurl in the spring. There's a sense in which we feel like we're uncurling. And that's the sense in which the nerves relax. As the nerves uncurl, they let go, they just release. That's what uncurling's like, it's just letting go. Okay, bringing the arms forwards towards your legs and bringing the legs back towards each other. Soles of the feet on the bricks, if you're using bricks. Get a little closer to your feet. And so that means moving your torso towards the bricks rather than the feet towards the torso, if you're, that is, if you're using bricks. So that's a little tricep lift and shift. Once you're in nice and close, we're going to stretch the arms over the head again, move them side to side, and then just lift the pelvis and play with it. Not too high at first, and incorporating any movements that genuinely are meditative, are genuinely meditative. Now, what does meditative mean? It means absorbed. What is absorbed into what? The particle into the wave, using a metaphor from particle physics. And particles exist in this super state. They exist in pure potential until observed. So they can be anywhere. But, you know, when we look at the model of an atom, the reality of the particles that spin around the nucleus is that they're nowhere, but they're sort of everywhere. It's a field. It's a field of potentiality is what particles ultimately are. And that's what we ultimately are, a human being. We think we're an individual with stories attached and labels attached. And that limits us. It puts us on sort of fixed tracks that are based on what our parents said to us and so on. But when you open up, when you let go, when you release, genuinely listen to the body, You step out of time. You step out of performing the asanas and step into absorption. Slowly float back down if you're ready. You might be onto something real good, so stay as long as you want. Flex up the hips when you're ready. That means lift up the feet, extend up the knees, and feel free to swing the legs, which I find very, very helpful, or move the feet between dorsi and plantar, or bend and extend the knees, or kick the buttocks, similar to the practice in Hatha Abhyasa Padati, which Hatha Abhyasa means the practice of Hatha. Padati means the way to, the path to. So that has the pose where you kick your own bum. From here, we're going to lower the legs, keeping the lower back. And this is the challenge. Intimate with the floor means keeping the mind. Intimate with the moment means open up to the reality beyond thinking. There's no thought that can contain this. So if you rely on thought, it won't help. We're going as low as we can, perhaps landing on the blocks or straight on the floor, and just letting yourself relax. So 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 deep breaths, really flowing with it, really flowing with it. And then when you're ready, we're going to lift the feet up, but we're going to use the deep belly. So we're just kind of floating the legs, and we can let the legs move backwards and forwards. So I've got my hand cupped on my deep belly. Now that's intimating to the belly to stay toned, but not in a fixed way. The tone of the belly is more like, we sometimes use this word, intelligent tone, because it's responsive. So although Pilates is definitely not yoga, there's a few elements from Pilates that I think are yogic. And one of them is the attention to the stability of what they call the core in Pilates, or the deep belly. The stability is sthiti in Sanskrit. The mind is sthiti, stable. And that stability should be relaxed. Now the legs are drifting in. We've got sthiti, we've got stability. And that stability is stable because the mind is relaxed. We're much more stable when we're relaxed. Okay, from here, extend the legs back up again. And again, feel free to dorsiplantar flex, to scrunch the toes, to circle, whatever else feels good, useful, and pleasant. When you're ready, we're going to lower one leg and then raise it and then do the same with the other. Again, the skill is not following the instructions, not doing what you're told, but meditating. Meditation means being able to be with the moment-to-moment awareness. And that means letting go of attachments around ideas about yourself and ideas about the world. Some early yoga traditions, or huge influence on yoga traditions, include the Shunyavada, or the way of emptiness, also known as the Madhyamaka, or the middle path. And as we're going back and forwards like this, the way of emptiness says that both self and world are empty of inherent existence. It's a bit of a highfalutin sentence, but it means that when we really look at what we say is mine, like, or things that we say are not mine, which is basically, part of the same paradigm, those things are not independent. You can't possess something that's a fundamental quality is change, and that is interdependent with everything else. You can't draw a ring fence. Once you've done a few, well, the legs come up, back up. Then we're going to bend the knees. We're going to place the feet down. We're going to roll on over. And we're going to come up from the side whenever we're ready. And I hope you're ready soonish. But there's no rush, don't rush. I'm going to put the blocks to one side. And I think it's useful to come to your yoga class because I think the chances of us doing the boat poses on our own are pretty slim. So, and they're very, very good for us because they teach us to surf, because the tone and the strength in the boat pose depends on attention staying with the moment. So hands behind the head, lean back by 60 degrees. and raise your toes up by 30. So your toes are level with your eyes. Jaw soft, eyes soft. Breathing through your nose. Again, the pose doesn't have to be static. It can have plenty of movement because it's a meditation. A meditation's a dance where the dance and the dancer become one. Okay. Bend your legs. Hug your legs. Lift up. Well done, everyone. Lift up and make the lower back light. Now, lightness is something, lagu in Sanskrit, lightness is something we're very, very interested in. Again, one of the influential traditions on yoga is Jainism. And Jainism has this idea of karma. Karma is an idea that's common to most, if not all, yogic schools. We can say it's one of the defining characteristics of a yogic school. And karma in Jainism is seen as sticky particles, or rather, people are seen as sticky, and the particles stick to sticky people, and they're seen as heavy. And the more of these particles that stick to you, the harder it is to sort of function. You can't see through them. It's heavy to get around. Energy is flat. Our ability to respond to the needs of the moment is very, very difficult. So sloughing off means moving in ways that are not karmic, that are not habituated. So it's a sort of movement that serves the purpose of not getting caught up in ideas and opinions, particularly in this case, ideas and opinions about yoga. So again, we can see this strong influence of this Shunyavada, or the emptiness school, the Madhyamaka. Okay, well done. The other boat pose for you, because you've been good. We're going to lean the body back by 30 degrees. We're going to raise the legs up by 60 degrees. You'll notice the angles have swapped which way around they are. The arms come forwards. We breathe through the nose and we meditate. Meditation has already been defined as the particle reabsorbed into the field. The field, in some sense, is empty. A later school builds on this. The Yogacara school builds on this by saying, well, it's not exactly empty. The mind makes things real. So it's called the mind-only school. Okay, well done. Come down. Stretch out your legs. Draw the buttock flesh out and back. You can, of course, sit on a block for this. You absolutely can and should. One really nice way to do it, and as I say, my blocks have got odd blocks, but is to have them short end to short end. Perhaps having odd blocks is quite useful because you can see more clearly. And then you sit on those short end to short end. You sit on them. That leaves little spaces for your hands as well. So even if your back's a bit tired, or you're feeling a bit tired, or if your hamstrings are tight, that's a really good option. We're going to bring our hands next to the hips. If you're using blocks short end to short end, you should have a little platform the same height as the platform your bum's on. It's the same platform for your hands as well. Breathing through your nose. Jaw soft, eyes soft. A little bit of movement. So I keep promising to run a workshop on Dandasana. And this pose is called Dandasana. And I keep saying that there are 8 stations to Dandasana. And they start with ranging around. And that's the foundational action. Ranging around has a purpose. It's to look for lightness. Lightness is a symptom and a cause at the same time of karmic particles dropping off. So moving left, moving right, looking for opportunities. Because karma makes us habituated, staying focused on this will sometimes challenge those habit patterns. They're called samskaras, impressions, and they lead to vasanas, tendencies. So the impression is the sort of mechanics of it, and then the tendency is the sort of expression of it. If you can manage another station, it's broadening the feet, like a smile, and that's incredibly meditative. So you imagine and feel a broadness. It's not mechanical. It's just like a smile across the feet. And we've only done 2 stations, and this is why I don't tend to teach many more than up to 5, I think, or 6, because although I am very happy to stay a long time, not everyone is. We're going to release out of the pose, therefore, we're going to come into Adho Mukha Svanasana. So that, of course, is the downward facing dog pose. You can do this on your forearms if it's difficult to do with your wrists. But if you push back a long way, that makes it much easier on the wrists, of course. So really get your palms to bed in, to mesh in. Keep the jaw passive and stretch through the armpits without holding the breath. Inner armpit, outer armpit, under armpit. It's a meditation, meaning that we should stay focused and absorbed. Although that sentence is an oxymoron, because we don't stay focused and absorbed. We become absorbed, reabsorbed into the origin field, the Adi Kshram, the origin field, which is non-conceptual. It eats concepts for dinner. Then there's this reabsorption, there's this waking up to interdependence. And that brings about the powers that are called Shaktis. That's the word for powers. If gods have powers, they're called the Shakti of the god. But the power of interdependence knocks us back into pure consciousness, which has the power to know, to act, and to will, according to the Tantra. Different systems are different on this. Okay, coming down to a regular kneeling, for which I suggest putting a block between the heels and buttocks, and or a blanket rolled up underneath the front ankles if they're tight. I don't think we should underestimate the value of kneeling. This is a very simple pose, but it stretches the front thighs, it stretches across the front ankles, it puts compression in a good way through the calves and the thighs. And you can use it to massage the bum. So it's very, very useful. And I could go on with the list of benefits to kneeling, but we'll leave it at that because it's enough to motivate us. So we breathe, we've got soft eyes, we've got a soft brain. We're breathing deep, we're breathing honest, we're breathing expressively. These are really nice attitudes to adopt. Now from here, we're going to come into Balasana. When we come into Balasana, I think it's sometimes if you've got a sore back or a tight tummy or anything like that, then it's highly worth having a structure like that, higher at the back, lower at the front, because we're going to do the Balasana with the knees together. And if you come forwards, firstly, we don't want to lift the bum off the heels. So going too far forwards might force that on us unless we can wait for the tissue to soften. Secondly, we do want to keep space in the spine. And if your back muscles feel too stretched, then that's a symptom of overstretching the back. And thirdly, sometimes if you come too low, there can be a compressive feeling in the abdomen. So a structure where you've got higher at the back and lower at the front, that can be really, really good. Of course, that can have different heights to it, as long as it's lower at the front and higher at the back. And I guess the lowest you can come to while still using blocks, of course, is nothing for the head. Put something for the arms, which is very, very nice. It sets up quite a useful mechanics. Inside the knees, there must be a growing relaxation, which the mind reflects and the breath reflects. So take deep breaths. Breathe through your nose if you can. Coming up slow and calm. By all means, stay longer if you want. Right? It's a lovely pose. We're going to come into Upavishta Konasana. Upavishta is Sanskrit, of course, for sitting, for seated. And Kona is Sanskrit for corner. So that's easy to remember because it basically sounds very, very, very similar. Corner, Kona, very, very similar. So the buttock is drawn out and back. Of course, sitting on a block is advantageous. If you are going to sit on a block, the corner of the block should just protrude in just slightly in front of the pubis so your thighs can release. That's very, very useful to have that. So to prove a point, I'm going to sit on block 2. So it's really nobody who won't benefit unless we were to forward fold in this. If you can fold, if your pelvis moves more than 30 degrees forwards, then it tends to start hitting in. The soft tissue starts to hit into the block, and that's not comfortable. But we're not going to be doing that, so it's all right. Cupped hands, back behind you, lifted chest, soft eyes, moving in ways that I hope you'll find enjoyable and meditative. So left and right and forwards and backwards. Enjoyable and meditative. Breathing through your nose with those soft eyes. Soft jaw. We're looking for release. We're looking for reabsorption. The movement is a bit like the movement of a cloth on a work surface, that you move the cloth and then any water that's been spilled can be mopped up. In the same way, the separate me, myself, and I gets mopped up through movement. So keep breathing, keep moving. Jaw soft, eyes soft. So because the poses are not about achieving a certain look, but a feeling of incorporation, oftentimes we can stay quite a long time in the pose, meditating, breathing. Now, if you feel ready, we're going to attempt to bend one leg. So you're going to draw it back real slow and careful. And it comes close to the block. And then you sit up. So it's a prep for a version of Parivrita Janu Shirshasana. We're bending one leg. You've got to help with the hands. You can use a block under the knee, or you can stay in the Upavishta Konasana if this proves to be too tricky. And then we're turning towards the bent knee. So our back turns towards the other leg. We breathe without holding the breath. We soften the eyes. We soften the jaw. We soften the brain. We soften the tongue. Everything that can be soft is soft. And then you might be able to keep your back towards your leg and lean a bit towards that leg. That might mean on your fingertips. It might mean with your hand on the leg. But you want to keep turning your back towards your leg and leaning a bit. We're not going to go super far, even if you can. Perhaps most of us are relieved to hear that we're not going very far because we're on a block, and that makes it a little bit fally-offy if you go, if your pelvis tilts beyond, say, 30, 40 degrees. Hopefully it's enough to give a good old stretch, and we're going to come up. And then we're going to see if we can guide our leg out. You can do this, as I mentioned, by staying in Upavishta Konasana. You don't have to bend the leg You can do the whole thing similarly, just without. But if you can bend the leg, you bend the leg, draw it back. And again, you turn your back towards your extended leg. And if that means, if you're still in Upavishta Konasana, if you haven't folded your leg back, obviously your back is facing the other leg to the leg it faced before. So any knee problems, the pose isn't a problem because you simply don't bend the knees. Turning your back as dynamically as you can towards your leg. You can lean back if you want. Keep the breath organic and flowing and free. Keep the eyes soft and calm. And we're turning as we tilt. Turning as we tilt. Not holding the breath. Breathing through the nose, if you can. Keeping the jaw soft. So it sets up some pretty good stretches usually. Coming back up in your own time without haste. Back to center, catch your breath. 2, 3, 4 or more. If you bend your leg, then extend it back out. You might already just have extended out, which is fine. And then we're going to attempt to bring the legs back towards each other if we can. And coming off the block, we're going to bring ourselves up to a standing position. Take your time, don't rush. It's been a big old stretch there. We're going to face the short end of our mats. I'm going to tidy up this blanket for aesthetic reasons. We're going to face the short end of the mat, about the length of our foot away from the end of the mat. We're going to raise the arms up and breathe through the nose. If balance is tricky, you can do this in front of your sofa and be leaning towards the sofa, for example, or chair. We're going to bend the ankles, knees, and hips and lean forwards. And at this point, I'm going to encourage a little bit of pulsing. That is up and down movement, perhaps with a little side-to-side movement. Great way to exercise the calcaneus tendons and the iliotibial tracts along the outer leg. We're going to eventually reach right the way down for the floor, and then a little bit more pulsing. So it could be bouncing the bum, it could be bending and extending the knees. The point is to loosen your body, to loosen your breath, and to loosen your stories. Body, brain, breath, and stories. And of course, for most of us to keep the back soft, the knees do need to stay bent, and that's just as it should be. Now we're going to either keep one hand cupped on the floor. In fact, let's just do it this way first of all. One hand cupped on the floor, push and turn, and the other hand onto your pelvis. And again, there might be pulsing or movement. Even if these things are difficult, which they often are, they're very, very beneficial for the mind, for the breath, for the lymph, the immune system, for the blood flow, for our general sense of happiness, and of course for building up and maintaining muscles. If you don't do a lot of practice or haven't done a lot recently, then it's difficult, but it gets easier the more regularly you do it. Let's go the other way. Similarly, breathing easy, building up intelligent tone in the quadriceps. And then when ready, arms up and stand up. Take a big wide circle. Bring your hands to your heart. Take 3 or 4 really deep breaths without holding the breath. Real focus on deep breaths now. Deep inhales, deep exhales, soft eyes, soft jaw, soft brain. We're going to raise the arms up again. And this time sweeping straight down to the floor, almost certainly bending the knees. Of course, you can go to a chair or your sofa with your hands. And don't forget, if it's difficult, that's not a problem with it.
difficulty actually is how we stimulate muscle growth. Difficulty is how we challenge samskara, these sort of these pathways conditioned into us by our society and our upbringing and so on. Now, most of us got the knees bent, that's as it should be. It's possible that through movement, that over time, movement of your feet, movement of your legs, you might be able to sufficiently hydrate the hamstrings so that they can straighten up a bit, bringing some tone to your front thighs also can help that tone to develop. And for some people, even raising the heels, very tricky. I'm not suggesting that everyone does this. I'm just, in case one or two feel like they could, then raising the heels, of course, lengthens the hamstrings loads, and that means you get a much deeper fold of the back of the pelvis and the back together. So that's a good way of borrowing a bit of extra length. And then once you've got a really deep fold, this is only for people with, a lot of flexibility, a very regular practice. I'm just giving this for those people, but most of us have got the knees bent, and that's right, and as it should be. Bending again, ankles, knees, and hips. Arms behind you, arms forwards and up, utkata, and standing all the way up. Take a big circle, hands to the heart. Deep breaths, plural. So we're taking deep breaths, several deep breaths. With the eyes soft, the eyes calm. We're going to release the hands. Now, the next thing we're going to do, it can be done with a chair if you find balance difficult. I'm going to give instructions for with and without a chair. Perhaps even 2 chairs are worth having. So the instruction for with a chair is have the chair seat facing you. I'm going to get this other quite nice chair, actually. This chair belonged to Nanny Lush. This was Nanny Lush's chair. It's been recovered. Anyway, Nanny Lush's tiny little great-grandmother of ours. She used to, I don't know why I'm talking about Nanny Lush. Anyway, I liked her very much. The one chair for your foot to come to, like that, with blocks, and then the other chair to support you while you do it. This is for anyone who finds balance a little tricky. Otherwise, using or not using Nanny Lush's chair. Otherwise, we don't have to use a chair at all. Instead, we're going to raise a heel, raise the leg, reach down for the big toe. And you can use a wall here or a chair for your other hand. So there's lots of ways you can use multiple chairs or walls. Don't be shy to use stuff. And we're going to pull the leg up and out to the side. So, or your foot's on a chair, perhaps on blocks on the chair or straight on the seat. And then if you're not using a chair, you extend the leg out, breathe through the nose without holding the breath, building up meditative strength. It's different to the, performative yoga. This is meditative yoga. So that's something very, very deep, very, very honest. Okay, bring the leg back down. If you brought it up or off the chair, swap around. If you're using a chair, you could simply just turn around 180 degrees if you're using a chair. And catch your breath in Tadasana. Again, a chair can be used for your hands or a wall. And when ready, foot on the chair with the other hand on the other chair, or holding your big toe and breathing. So the point is not what you look like, but that there's some challenge for you. That's all that's required. Pull the leg up and out if you're doing it this way, and then extending your arm to counterbalance and raising that leg in your own time, breathing through your nose, head in line with the spine, not holding the breath at all. Jaw soft, temples soft, forehead soft, chest really open, eyes really soft and calm.
Breathing through the nose if you can. Okay. Really good. Coming down, this is of course Udita Hasta Padangusthasana. And back to Tadasana. Again, I'll remind you, you can have a chair in front of you for Tadasana. It's a really useful thing to do. And of course, it's traditional to use props. I'm pretending to have a chair because I'm not using one, but it's quite a nice thing to do. And if you are using a chair, it's all about the standing up straight. It's all about the standing up straight anyway. Shoulders down. Just let your body twist any way it wants to. Just sort of let it drift. If it wants to drift right over to the right or drift right over to the left, let it go to its full range of drifting. And what happens is that the body sort of comprehends its misalignments because it's not being overlaid with our opinions and so on. So it starts to sort of range around by itself. There's a sort of spontaneity to it. The body explores its biases, it might twist right the way around one way and then twist right the way around the other. But it's exploring. It might drop one side or drop the other. We're just letting it do what it wants to. It wants to twist, it twists. It wants to drop, it drop. And I'm pretty confident that your body, like mine, will start realigning itself, as it were, from the inside, as it were, holistically. Breathing calm, breathing relaxed, shoulders down, head up, jaw soft, gluteal creases cut in. It's where your bum meets your thigh. It's a deliberately difficult instruction to follow. Gluteal creases cut in, deepen. And that cutting in is accompanied by a lifting up on the front of the leg. And it's subtle, it's challenging. It's not as easy as just doing things. It's much more, it demands us to let go of preoccupation. Great. Hands on the hips. Let's step the feet apart. Again, if you find balance difficult, you can do this in front of a wall, the wall in front of you to give you the security you need. We're going to stretch the arms out into this inspiring Tarasana. You can even do this laying on your back like a stranded starfish. So a little bit of wiggling, light tone of the tummy, loosen the neck, breathing through the nose. And jaw soft. So this is Tarasana, movement, finding the pelvic floor, not holding the breath. So the wiggling of the fingers is very, very helpful. We're going to turn the left toes in, right foot and leg out on the ball of the foot, finishing off the turn on the heel. Inhaling, exhaling, Trikonasana. Again, you can do this facing a wall, for example, so your hand can be on the wall for stability, or with your back to a wall and a chair in front of you. And you can even do Trikonasana, can you believe it, laying down. That works very, very well. So bottom ribs forwards, eyes soft. Breathing deep. Come on up when you're ready. Well done. Hands on the hips. Back to your Tarasana. Again, you could be laying on your back like a stranded starfish, and that's nice and fine and useful. Or you can do it standing up like we are. And then again, you can do Trikonasana laying down. It's just what it seems like. You just move the body. It takes a little bit of twisting, or you can do it just where you are. Just going to check the screen. Something's come up with a message. I think it might not be a problem. Keep breathing into it. Okay, apparently my hand is raised. So I don't know why I raised my hand. I suppose I raised it in Trikonasana. So breathing, jaw soft, eyes soft, meditative, breath-centered, interested, disappearing from all of the personal mandala. We've all got our very, very, very particular things we're focused on: where we live, who we hang out with, what we think is good and what we think is not good, our familial relationships. Very, very, everyone's very, very caught up. We're all caught up in our personal mandala. And yoga says there's a whole other layer that your personal mandala is sort of sitting on. But if you follow your experience through, you relax, you melt. Layanam means melting. You can go back to this field of pure potential where you're not limited at all. We're coming down to Adho Mukha Svanasana, the downward facing dog. So we're just simply stepping back, stretching open those armpits or charm pits. Okay, it's a mixture of chest and armpit, charm pit, because it is the chest that stretches, isn't it? Really good stretch right the way through. Breathing through your nose if you can. And finally coming down to laying on your tummy. I'm going to move Nani Lush's chair out of the way now. But you're just laying down on your tummy. Marvelous, Nani Lush. Thanks, Nani Lush, for those margarine tubs with a cutout of a little doggy cut out from a card filled with ice gems that you used to give me when I used to visit your flat, Nani Lush. Little homage to Nani Lush there. Okay, stretching the tummy, breathing through the nose, elbows and forearms on the floor, getting as much length as you can through the back. So it's just a little lift up, a little stretch up, stretching the legs back as well, keeping them pretty close together. So this is a great version of Bhujangasana. Bhuja, of course, can mean lots of different things. And an elephant's trunk is a bhuja. An arm is a bhuja. A snake is a bhuja. So we're going to try and lengthen those deep belly tissues and muscles by moving left and right. The pelvis and legs pretty much stay on the floor, but we're stretching down through the deep belly. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of repetition. So you just keep going with that repetition. And for most of us, this is plenty. It's really great. Really incorporating a lot of different fibers. If you know your back is very mobile, by all means, bring your hands next to your mid-ribs, suck in your tummy, and continue the pose like that, much higher up, of course. Either way is good. The back of the body goes in towards the front of the body. So we try to feel the spinal column burying itself deeper and lifting up from the front. So it's a meditation, the back of the body in towards the front of the body, and then pulling up along the anterior part of the spinal column, which we sometimes view as the central channel. And I think this pose is a slow burn. I think, it's good to stay. Obviously, if you do need to rest, some of you might have done already, you can rest, take a few breaths, and then come back up. But I do think it can also be useful to just stay and keep working on that depth from the back and the lift from the front in Bhujangasana. Okay, we'll come down and rest one hand on top of the other. Take deep breaths without holding the breath. Relax the jaw. Relax the tongue. Relax the gluteals. Relax the eyes. Relax the brain.
Just stay with that process, the process of breath release. We're going to repeat exactly the same thing. So up on the elbows and stretching. Stretching the legs back to get that length in the psoas backwards, stretching, pulling on the forearms to get this stretch in the tummy. And again, this station here is just perfect. There's so much in it. This is all we need, actually. But it may be that one or two of you feel comfortable to reach back and hold one foot, or perhaps you can get the ankle, or perhaps you can get the shin, like I've got here. Others might be able to hold both feet, ankles, or shins at the same time. So you can either do it one at a time, the foot, the ankle, or the shin, or both at the same time. Or stay on the forearms and keep stretching. That's a long, slow burn. If you are holding the shins, then of course you feel the spine going deeper and lifting up. Those two things, it goes deeper and it elevates. It goes deeper from the back and it elevates. And there's a process, an ongoing process. If you're ready to come down, maybe you have already, one hand on top of the other, rest and breathe. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 of those really deep breaths. Really deep breaths. And the great thing about having choices is you can repeat any one of the choices again, and we're going to end up having done 3, perhaps, of one thing or the other. So we've come into the, up onto the elbows, we've come into the Bhujangasana, we've come into the Dhanurasana. And now you get to choose which one of those you want to do, but we all start with the same pose, and this will be the last of this trilogy of back arches. We all start on the elbows and the forearms, we all start stretching the legs back, and then you choose whether you want to come up into the Bhujangasana, that is the cobra, or whether you want to stay working on the deep belly on the forearms, or whether you want to come into the Dhanurasana of the bow. But what matters isn't which one you choose, but the attitude, which should be meditative. You concentrate, dharana, concentration, until you start to feel emerging a unity, dhyana. And that unity reaches its zenith when there's nothing on the outside of this or on the inside of this. Everything is everything. So that's samadhi, meaning same, sama, and di, supported. Everything equally supported. Breathing through your nose. Drive the back of the body towards the front of the body if you're doing, well, any of those variations. Stay as long as you can. But don't hold yourself there. Keep studying it. It's important that we keep studying it. Okay, coming down when you're ready. One hand on top of the other. Now you get to really huff and puff as you rest your head. So let's have some proper deep breaths from everyone now, with your head resting on your hands in the Makarasana, just observing the energy, the vibrations, the tingling sensations as they naturally fade. So observing fading sensations. Observing fading sensations. You'll notice the buttocks are releasing away from each other naturally. It's fading sensations. When you're ready, you can begin to roll over onto one side
We're going to bend the leg that we're laying on. So 90 degrees. And then that extension, that lovely, soft, attitudinal and physical simultaneously. Attitude that softens the body so we can stretch the inner groin back and lift and land it as many times as we find utility in doing. We suck in the tummy, push down, we lift and turn down to the elbows, forearms and wrists. Taking deep breaths, drawing the tummy further forwards, so in and forwards. Really great massage for the thoracolumbar fascia. And use that massage as it's meant to be, as a portal. As a portal. So sucking in the tummy, pulling forwards the chest, and turning. Breathing through the nose if you can. Top leg on top of the bottom leg, just curl up real easy from the side. And we're going to repeat, of course, the same thing the other way around. So bending the leg you're laying on, extending the groin of the lower leg multiple times. So you feel the softness, and then it's a push down, lift and turn down to the elbows, forearms and wrists. And without holding the breath, take some deep breaths. Massage it in a little bit. So you really feel that thoracolumbar, thoracic, combined with the lumbar fascia. And you meditate on it, you melt it through movement. It's just delicious. 10 out of 10. When you're ready, top leg on top of the bottom leg, you curl up from the side. Take a comfortable seated position, for example, Siddhasana. Sitting on a block is a good idea for Siddhasana. Breathe through your nose if you can. You will send 3 bijas up through the central channel, and those are the bija Om. So just imagining you're starting at the pelvic floor and going all the way up. Taking a deep breath in when you're ready. Oh. Oh. And the last one. Oh. When you finish these deep breaths, soft eyes, soft forehead, soft brain, soft tongue. We're going to come into a very important pose, Shavasana. So we're going to lay ourselves down, so come off your block. And make sure if your head tips back that you've got some head support. Make sure you're warm enough. Make sure your hands are not next to the body, but, well, they are next to the body, but not right in. There's some space for the arms to extend out and shoulder blades to be scooted under. And that's a good thing to do, to scoot the shoulder blades under, actually. And eyes closed, jaw soft, whole body melts. So this is in the Dattatreya Yoga Shastra, this is categorized as a Laya yoga practice, Laya, meaning melting yoga. So that can be very, very pleasant, just melting the particle back into the wave, or you could call it a field. Of course, there's a correlation between the level that the body settles and the level the body expands. So we call that settling, expanding, obvious reasons. We can lay as long as we like, as long as we've got. And I always recommend, if you've got, 5-10 minutes more, then it's really good in Shavasana to really settle in. And when it is time to come out, which it might have to come out now if you've got limited time, or it might hopefully be in 5 or 10 minutes, then you'll simply move your toes and your fingers and take interested stretches until you feel ready to bend the legs and scoot the buttocks under and take a deep breath. It's really good to come out with this sort of procedure, rolling after that to the left for a few moments with the knees up, and then to the right for a few moments. But as I say, hopefully you've got time for this to be in a few minutes, but it might be now. It's fine either way. And when you finally come up, you can bring your hands to prayer, but that might, actually you might just be where you are, which works very, very well. And bringing in just the intention. Well, just turning around because there's some nice orange light from the sunset. So from wherever you are, may any benefit that we've gained in our acting in this way go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. Om. Really appreciate your time. It's been great to see you, and look forward to seeing you soon. I'll remind some of you have got an immersion. I've got an immersion tomorrow, but there's another immersion over the winter solstice. You might want to come to that. All prices are on the internet, on the Vajrasati website. And I've got another yoga holiday in March as well with Kadeen. We're both running that. So that should be marvelous. Anyway, that's the end of the adverts. Love and peace. Thanks, gang. Have a great evening.
Good. See you
Thank
tomorrow.
you.
See you,
Thanks.
Donna.